So what's in it for you? Why is it important for you to know how to get the best out of your team? Well, it turns out that people who work well with other people move faster in their careers. So once you have a group of people working in an organization, the people that tend to rise, through their career faster are people who work well with others. And the reason is you're there top of mind of everybody, and you're there in good light, right? So when something comes up, opportunities come up, they say, oh, this guy will be able to handle it. And one thing leads to another, and you just move on faster. Another key thing is you enjoy better relationships, right? What goes around comes around. When you treat people well, they treat you well as well. And if you enjoy working with people, you get an opportunity to even do more of that. So I guess these are the reasons why most of you are here. Yeah, so that's good. So this is the only slide that talks about or mentions the word architecture. This talk is about people, right? So, and this aims to show you how organizations are layered, right? So we see exactly where this talk, stems from. So every organization has this mission or vision they're trying to achieve, right? And around that, they form an entity on paper, right? They register, get a company name, and everything. Then on top of that, you get some form of infrastructure, right? Either get an office space. If you have an office space, you need lighting, cooling, power, and so on. Once you solve that, the next thing you do is you get a set of tools, right, that you use for your business or whatever. And on top of that, you have processes, right, ways of doing things that rely on the tools and the infrastructure of your business. Then you have people around that. And when your teams work well, you achieve the outcomes your organization has set out to achieve. So the outcomes you want to achieve, for you to know you've gotten them right, it has to align with your mission and vision, isn't it? So this talk is about how do you make the most of the people you have, of your teams? Because no matter how much you spend on every other thing or how well you set it up, if you get the people part wrong, it becomes toxic and you won't get your outcomes, right? And everybody is going to suffer for it. So why do you need a team? So you want to work more efficiently, isn't it? That's why you need a group of people to focus on a particular problem and get a solution for it. You want to have improved employee relations, because trust me, if you have good working teams, then you're going to have a very good and productive organization. Then increase accountability. When you have teams, you have responsibilities, and they're able to account for certain aspects of the company. Another good one there is learning opportunities. When you have teams, it creates an opportunity for people who are new, who are just starting, to learn. And you find out that over time, the structure of your team or the members of the team changes. But if you've provided a good atmosphere for learning to take place, you realize that your team still remain efficient despite those changes. Then a very important part is with teams, you get to aggregate and leverage strengths. That's a very important point, because that's the whole reason why you need a team. Because you have a certain problem that needs to be solved, and you have an idea of the solution, and then you need people to come together to produce that solution. Now, you need to have people who operate at their very best, bring their strengths to the team. And when you're able to leverage these strengths and aggregate them, you find out that, yes, you work properly well. You will notice that there's nothing saying that teams work faster there, right? So when you have a team, it doesn't mean they're going to work faster at solving the problems. In some cases, an individual might provide a solution faster than a team would do. But the key insight here is, as you can see from the proverb at the bottom, if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together. So it has a lot of meaning, right? So sometimes you notice that especially when you're forming a new team, it takes a while for the team to get to know each other, pick up and all that. And you might be thinking you're not getting your results. But it's better for you in the long run than when someone just goes away, comes back after 2 days and says, here's your solution. Good, you have it, but who's going to look after it? What if that person doesn't show up anymore or is sick? You now start having serious problems. So businesses perform better when you work with teams. And another thing you want to do is you want your teams to function in a way, as if it's a single person, really. You have plenty of people working as a team, but they need to function as one cohesive unit, right? So while I was on the plane from Abuja yesterday to this place, I was just taking note of what the crew, was doing on the flight. And you find out that you have to have a team there, right? One person can't fly the plane, attend to passengers and handle issues here and there. It just won't work. It's not possible. So you need a team, and everybody has his own role to play. So that's another key thing. Another way to look at it is when you're presented with a problem, right, and you have the skill to tackle that problem, you realize that, once you understand that problem, you start to see the solution in your mind, right? You start to see that, okay, this is what I'm going to do to achieve this result. It's pretty easy. It's just you. You're talking to yourself. But the moment you have 2, 3, or more people, now it becomes a bit challenging. So, and that's why a lot of times you find out that teams don't work. And there are so many reasons for that. We're going to go through some of them. So poor coordination and motivation is one of the reasons why teams don't work. So you might have people on your team, but you're stepping on each other's toes. You're repeating tasks, right? That's a very big waste of time and energy when you have tasks being repeated. And as easy or as simple as it sounds, this happens a lot. In fact, it might be happening on your team at this moment, right? So you have a certain amount of work to be done, and then you have 2 or 3 people working on the same thing. And that just wastes your time and energy. So when you don't have good coordination or the team members are not motivated, your team won't work. Motivation is, a whole very wide thing because people are motivated for different reasons. So you should try not to think of motivation as just maybe financial for everybody. People are motivated for different reasons. So when you don't have that, your team won't work. If team members change all the time, it's as good as you don't have a team because they're always starting from scratch, right? You're always trying to either teach or bring people up to speed. And the moment they become productive, if they leave, your team won't just work. You won't get the benefits. Remember, it takes a while for a team to really pick up. It doesn't just happen just like that. This is also a very important one. When you have unclear team goals and expectations, never think just because someone is on the team with you understands what the goals or expectations of that team is. So as a leader, you have to constantly remind and tell your team members what the vision or what the goal or the objective of your team is. If not, after a while, people tend to not know what's really going on. And when that happens, your team becomes vulnerable. When certain things come up, you realize that the team tends to want to go in different directions. But when everybody knows exactly what the team goals and expectations are, you find out that, this isn't important to us. No matter how flashy or how good it looks, this is where we're heading to. We'll come back to it later, right? So that helps you keep everybody focused and in the right direction. communication. When you have very poor communication, it affects your team. So this kind of goes over everything. Communication, I don't think it ever ends. I don't think you can say you're ever an expert at it. So you need to keep on trying to make sure that you're spreading the message with your team members and you're getting feedback from them. It's very easy to misunderstand each other. You can tell someone, I need you to do A, B, C. And right at that moment, you ask him or her, do you understand? And the person will say, yes, I do. Now, that doesn't mean that the person understands clearly what you've said. So therefore, all you should do is, when you give instructions or you have directives, you say, tell me what you understand from what I've just said, right? What you're trying to achieve is that you're trying to make sure that what that person understands is what you understand. And what that person understands about what you're saying is the same, right? So the phrase is shared understanding, right? So communication is very important. There's a little video clip I would like to show to buttress this. So how do I get it here? Okay, good. So it's just a video showing kids having a relay race. So it's a very short clip. And all the progress is lost. So someone didn't tell that team member where we are running to. It's funny, but it happens a lot, right? It happens a lot. And in the kind of work we do, time is important, right? So when someone doesn't understand something and he takes a day or two working on that task, only to realize that, no, this is not what we want. Or someone already did this before. It's, you lose a lot of time and it might demoralize some people, depending on the person's personality. So setting clear objectives and expectations, communication helps you to avoid that kind of situation. And you have to keep on working, at it. It happens, sometimes to a small degree, sometimes to a very large degree. So you have to be aware and take note of such things. You need to love your team. You need to like your team. You need to be present, right, as a leader. Because, believe it or not, your team members are looking up to you. Whether you're aware of it or not. They watch you, whatever you do. I've heard stories of someone saying that there's this store that's close to an office, that whenever the sales of a particular drink goes up, the person knows that their team leader is around because he drinks that specific drink. So your team leaders, as team leaders, you should know that your team members, they watch you. And the moment you disconnect, they get that feeling, right? They feel probably what they're doing isn't important anymore. And once you lose people that way, it's hard to get them back. So always try to be part of the team and do something apart from just giving directions and getting updates. We'll talk more about this going forward. So those are things that make teams not work. So let's look at some of the things that will make your team work. So simple and straightforward, avoid everything I just said, right? Just do the opposite. So make sure you coordinate your team. Make sure you motivate them. So for coordination, there are certain, approaches, processes you can apply to make sure that everybody knows what he or she is meant to do, where and when, and be able to track progress and get feedback. When a team member wants to leave, either they tell you or you find out, try and ask them why. Get to know why. Don't just let them go. Let them feel that they are important and they are needed on the team. If you have to do that when they're leaving or they said they're going, it's a bad sign. Make them feel important right from day one, right? Let them know why they're on the team and that they are useful on that team. Set clear goals and objectives. Maintain good communication so you don't have people running in opposite direction. And be present. In essence, your role as a team lead is to nurture your team. A gardener doesn't tell plants how to grow. They already know how to do that. All the gardener needs to do is to make sure that the right environment and circumstances are provided, right? And then the plants just know exactly what to do. And everybody's happy at the end. But some plants might have difficulties, growing or germinating. So when you identify such, you pay close attention, find out what the problem is, and you need to even spend more time with such plants. So the same thing applies to humans, to people. For someone to be on your team, the assumption is that the person knows fairly well what he or she is doing. So what you are there for is to make sure that the environment is set right and that their needs are provided for. Their needs will cut across several things. It could be technical, it could be personal, interpersonal stuff. So your work as a team lead is really messy. So if you think dealing with people is messy, then that's what you have to do. So with the kind of work we do as software architects, software developers, I've come to realize that when you have something to offer, when you have something to bring to the table, which in this case is some technical skill, it goes a long way in getting your team members to trust you and believe in you, right? Try to avoid being the person that only asks for updates, right? Or just assigns tasks. Be a mentor, be a coach, right? So since we're talking about technical stuff, software-related stuff, whatever skill you have that is technical will be useful on the team. And when tasks are given out, try and make sure you pick a task to do. Most likely you want to avoid the critical path type of tasks, but do something, right? Especially some things like code review or writing some utility. It keeps you engaged. Your team knows that you care about the work they do. And another good side of it is you get to see how your team actually gets work done. Because when they just report to you and you don't look at the code or you don't test the application, you miss certain things, right? But when you interact with the code and what they do, you find out that they're either following what you want or they are not. And it's easier for you to approach whoever is involved or responsible and talk to the person. So it's something that is really, really important. If developers had a choice between a technical lead and someone who is not technical, who do you think they will prefer? The technical, right? Because the person understands them. They believe the person understands them. He understands their challenges. And if things go wrong, be more considerate than someone who isn't. And if they need to talk to stakeholders or management, you can easily turn around and say, do you know what, give my guys some more time, as against throwing them under the bus because they don't understand what they do or how they do it. So if you're dealing with people, you're dealing with emotions. It's a mixture, a melting pot, a salad of emotions on the team. And they're either positive or they're negative. What you want is to keep the positive emotions, because if people are not feeling good about themselves or in a bad mood, they won't do good work. And the kind of work developers do, software people do, is not manual labor per se, right? It has to do with thinking, critical thinking, your mind. So if you're not settled or not in a good mood, you won't do good work. So if you notice someone is in a bad mood, there's nothing wrong in asking the person, do you know what, you don't need to do anything today. Just take some time off, get yourself together and then come back. The person might be more productive than keeping the person there and asking him or her to do stuff. So here you have emotions displayed on a chart. And what it's telling us is, well, it's a concept of flow, and the person behind it, the person's name is down there, I can't pronounce it. So, so if anyone knows how to pronounce it, I understand it's a Hungarian name. Oh, thank you. So the concept of flow says that when you get absorbed in the work you're doing, you get into a state of flow. You get into the zone. I am very sure people here have experienced that. I have, and I like getting in the zone because your work is just, you're just cruising, everything is going fine until someone interrupts, asks whether you got the email. So what brings about that kind of state? Turns out, if you're skilled at something and you're working on something that is challenging, before you know it, you get into the flow. So just think about it for a minute. Right? You have the skill and you're working on something challenging. So you're really pumped up and you're into it. When you have someone who has mid-level kind of skills, and you're asking the person to do very unchallenging or boring work, the person becomes bored. And when people are bored, they leave the team, or they even leave the company. So you want to be checking for these emotions. And don't forget, people on your team would exhibit this at different times, depending on what the team is doing at that point in time, and so on. So when you notice, for me, someone being bored is a red flag, actually. So when someone is bored, you really need to do something about it. Because I'm sure we don't like doing boring stuff. So that's a red flag. When someone doesn't have the right skill, and you give the person a very challenging task to do, and you say, I need it in 2 days, the person becomes very, very anxious. So when you find people like that on the team, it just means they need more time, more coaching time, more mentorship. Identify the person, sit with the person and say, oh, it's not that big of a task. This is what you need to do. Do this, break it down, and then just work on the small bits. You find out that the person's anxiety will just drop. Right? And if you're lucky, it moves to probably arousal or somewhere close to that. So if you look at this carefully, you find out your team members will be anywhere on this chart at different points in time in a single day. Right? So what you want to avoid is prolonged, episodes of this. Right? You don't want someone coming in every day and the person is bored at work. So you need to have an eye for it and find a way of moving the person across. The top right is where you want your team members to be generally. So you avoid the bottom left as much as possible. Yeah. So you need to know your team members, right? You need to get to know your team members properly. It doesn't mean you pry into their private lives, but you need to understand them. You need to know what makes them tick. You need to know what turns them off. You need to know what pisses them off. So in this book, Being Geek, it talks about how people react to surprises. And it turns out that the way people react to surprises tells you a lot about the person. And it goes on to list all these different personalities. So when you tell someone, some surprising news, there are those that are called, the doctor knows. They keep on saying no. They just, want to reject it. Say no, it's, it can't be. I won't accept this. No, So you have people like that. And the book talks about the raging bull, which it says is one of the most dangerous, personalities. This person wants to pick a fight with anybody that wants to. So when you give this person a surprising news, he's busy looking for who to fight. So when you have people like this on your team, it goes on to say that if it's in a meeting and you give this kind of surprise news, This person reacts that it's time to end the meeting. Just end the meeting. It's time to end the meeting. Then you have still water. Still water are just people that keep it in. They won't say a thing, right? And it goes on to say, these are the people you should really look out for because the damage is happening internally. They won't say anything. They just keep quiet and, trying to figure out what's going on. The distiller will ask questions. He fights back by asking questions. So he gives surprising news and he says, but why? We did this. How come that happened? Why wasn't this done? Does that mean it affects me and everybody else? They keep on asking questions because they're trying to understand that surprising news. And these kind of people are easier to deal with as long as you have the answers. And having the answers could be saying that you don't have the answer. It's an answer too. But being able to answer their questions helps a lot. Then the handler. The person feels he or she has everything under control. Yeah, there's no problem, we'll figure this out. But most times it turns out that it's not so. So you should take note of that. Then people who say, oh, it must have been my fault. I must have done something wrong for this news to come this way. We're doomed. It says eventually everybody ends up, saying we're doomed. And another one is I quit. You pass some surprising news and the next thing you hear the person says, I quit. But it says don't take the person seriously. Just go think about it, come tomorrow and let's see if it's really a good or the best decision to take. So these are people that you come across. I'm sure you might find yourself being in one or two of these categories. And there are people on your team who would behave or react in this way. These ones are the fight responses, the ones on the left, and the ones on your right there are the flight responses. So any piece of news you give people, they either want to fight or flight in different ways. Another way of looking at people on your team is, people are stars. You have people who are highly structured. They want everything organized, right? You do one thing after the other. You don't skip steps. If you do, things are going to go bad. And if you insist, then they feel they can't work with you anymore. So there might be people like that on your team. There are others who are very technical. They don't want too much talk. They just want to know what they need to do, and then they just go and write some code. Or they want to engage in technical conversations. Others just want to take action. Right? Something comes up, we need to do something. And then there are people who are more interested in just building and maintaining relationships, right? So that's another way you can look at your team members. Trust, as you might have figured, is something that is very important on a team, right? If there's no trust on a team, then nothing works. If you've watched any of these superhero movies and so on, you see that the team operates based on trust, right? They'll be there for each other no matter what. So how do you build this trust? You need to listen, right? You need to listen and not waiting to talk, right? When someone is speaking to you, you need to listen, especially if it's your team member, because people will give you a lot of cues as to how they are feeling or what they think about something. The issue is most times it's non-verbal, so which is quite hard to detect unless you have an eye for it. So I'm sure there are books you can read that will help you develop that side of it, but you need to listen. So for the non-verbal cues, you can observe your team members, how they work, what do they do when they're stressed out. When you pass certain pieces of information, how do they respond? It's going to help you a lot because nobody is the same on your team. They all behave differently and react differently to different situations. And a good thing to do is ask questions, right? If you need to find out something, ask your team members questions. Talk to them, and they'll let you know whatever it is. Most times you find out that what you are assuming is wrong. So asking questions is good. Another thing you should do in order to make your team work is don't try and be someone else. Please don't try and be someone else. Just be yourself. If you're someone that is quiet, an introvert, and you happen to need to lead a team, then just be yourself, right? If you make that clear to your team members that this is me, right, and you're transparent, it builds that trust. Because don't forget, you are also part of the team, and you have your own weaknesses. And if there is trust, your team members will fill in the gaps for you. And that's what really makes the team. It's not you and them, it's us, right? So don't try and be any of these people who have their leadership styles so popularly available. And they've achieved quite a lot, or are still achieving a lot. So you feel, okay, this leadership style is the way to go, and then you bring it to your team. It's not going to work. Your team members know you, and they can see right through you if you're not being yourself. So just be you. Another very strong thing for you to do is show empathy, right? Try as much as possible to put yourself in the shoes of your team members, right? So if you understand them, you will get to know how they tend to feel or think at different points in time under different situations. Now, the questions here help you empathize with people. So one of them is, this person I'm talking to, or this person on my team, has beliefs, perspectives, and opinions just like me, right? So when you start asking yourself these questions, you realize that you begin to see things from different points of view. They have families, they have fears, they too want to be respected, they want to feel important. So empathize with your team members. It's going to go a long way in helping you, making sure that your team works. I think this is one of the main reasons why you need a team lead. So when management is telling you, take care of this team, lead this team, I'm very sure at the back of their mind, they just don't want to hear about the conflicts. Deal with it, right? And wherever you have people that are staying together long enough, you're going to have conflict. And long enough could be just a couple of hours, right? So don't be thinking 6 months, a year. Just a couple of hours, you could start having conflicts on the team. Now, conflicts in themselves are not bad things. It's how they are dealt with that matters, right? So the moment you notice or you have a conflict being brought to your notice, take it seriously. Problems are easier solved when they are small than when they grow into something big. So when there are conflicts, what you want to do is try and listen to both sides, right? If you have more than two sides in the conflict, then listen to all sides. And then try and identify the facts. Now, that, I think, is the easy part. The tough part comes when you now need to come together to find a solution or a resolution, right? A compromise for that situation. Sometimes you realize that the person who is at fault is a raging bull. So how do you handle that kind of thing before you also get into the conflict yourself? So you need to be aware of those kind of things. So that's why it's important to follow all those things I mentioned. You listen, you know your team members, you know where they are emotionally, you know how they respond to certain pieces of information. So that will help you in trying to bring everybody together to reach some form of resolution. And whatever resolution you reach, everybody has to stand behind it. If they don't, then that conflict isn't resolved. And it's going to happen or come up later on again. And it might even be more, it might be a bigger issue when it does come up. So you need to make sure that the conflict is resolved and everybody is behind the resolution. So these are some of the things you can identify when you're setting your expectations and objectives of the team. That on this team, there are going to be issues. But when there are issues, we're going to try our best to get to a resolution. And once we get to a resolution, everybody has to stand behind it. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Mind you, it might not favor everybody, but it might be in the best interest of the team. And if you're transparent about it, your team would understand. In most cases, when you have conflicts, it's just a deficiency of information on either side. Someone doesn't know that this is what it is. So when that is made clear, it helps the person. The person just backs down. So it has to be done with a clear mind. And of course, you need to know yourself, because you are not a computer, right? You are also human. You also have emotions. You're also going to be put in all those situations and emotional conditions that we talked about. So when you know yourself, you know how you respond in certain situations, right? And you know what your response is. So you try your best to avoid those kind of situations. If you're someone that gets angry easily, or you snap easily, when someone gives you any piece of information that's not favorable or does something you don't like, you need to find a way of not reacting immediately. Those personalities we talked about, Raging Bull, Dr. No, and so on, in the book they are talked about under knee-jerk reactions. So if a team member delivers information to you, because it could happen to you too, you need to know where you fall and what your reaction is going to be, and find a way of controlling it. Because if you don't watch your own emotions, it's going to go around the team. So understand your personality. Take responsibility when things go wrong, especially when things go wrong. It's your team. Don't point fingers. Don't say, oh, it's this person that didn't do this or didn't do that. That is a very, very bad thing to do, right? Your team is just going to gang up against you and let you know that they too are important. So don't throw them under the bus, essentially. Celebrate and reward high-performing teams or team members. Avoid blanket statements. If someone does well on your team, right, let everybody know this person did this, 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 and that. And because of this, we're able to achieve A, B, C. And this person has done well. Either give a reward or just that commendation. It goes a long way. If you don't, what will happen is this person might not put in that much anymore, because he sees that you don't even identify the inputs they've made to make the team successful, right? So next time they'll be, oh, I could just be like everybody else. And for your team to succeed, you really need people who perform very high. So you need to identify those kind of people and reward them. And then take time to read books on leadership. Being Geek is a good book. It's written by Michael Lopp, I believe. He has another one called Managing Humans. And his writing style is really interesting. Has anyone here read any of his books? Anyone? Okay. So please do. His writing style is, it's fun to read. You see yourself in those kind of situations. So thanks for listening. Thank you. So I believe we have 10 minutes left. I wanted to leave this time for questions, interactions. It's important. If you have any questions, you can ask. Yes.
So for the fight or flight and the my bad, like the flight ones, how do you respond? Do you have any advice on how to respond to those if somebody's in flight?
Yes. So for my bad, the first thing you do is let the person know that it's not their fault. They didn't do anything that brought about that situation, So that's just it. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Someone at the back there.
Can I have a question?
Yes.
I like the presentation.
Yeah. Thank you.
You talk mostly about leading downwards, right?
Yes.
How do you manage leading sideways when you have colleagues at the same level and you have a colleague whereby he doesn't know how to control his own emotions? As it comes, he says it and present things in a bad way. So how would you manage such a situation?
Okay. So from what you've said, the good thing is that you know how this person behaves, right? So that's a very good step. He just says whatever comes to his mind, right? So you can do the same, right? When he says what comes to his mind, you can let the person know your own feelings or your own thoughts on what he or she has just said. Because when you leave such people, they just keep on saying their mind, not knowing whether they're hurting people or helping people, right? So if you give the person feedback from what he or she is saying, it helps the person too. So because someone says his mind doesn't mean the person is a violent person, right? It might just be someone that just says their mind. So it's good to, if I were in that situation, I would respond, likewise. And see, this thing you said, I think this is what I think about it, or don't do this, I didn't like what you did, that kind of thing. So the person knows, Yeah. Yes?
If you've got to lead multiple teams, a lot of the methods you talked about are very high bandwidth. How would you scale that up? Or is that a bad idea to try and scale it up? Like, let's say you had like 5 teams of 7 to 8 people that you're trying to lead.
Okay, so I don't think it's a bad idea. I've led multiple teams. The fact is, the more teams you have to lead, the less time you get to spend with them. So in such situations, what you should be aware of is the contact points you have with the team. So if a team needs you because there's a conflict, then give them your full attention and try and resolve the conflict. If a team needs you because they have a technical issue, then give them your full attention. They won't expect you to be there all the time, right? But when they do, then they do need you to be there. So those contact points are more important because they're going to have less of them. If it's on a team that if just a single team you manage, if you don't handle this conflict well, when it comes up, you have another opportunity to handle it, right? But when you have more teams, then those contact points are more important because you might not get the opportunity to, rectify or have another shot at it. Yeah. And then there are tools you can use. So this works for remote teams, video conferencing, chat, all that happens. So emotions, they go through the wire as well. Yeah. Yeah. Any other question? Okay, let me take that at the back first. Yeah.
Do all of these techniques tend to work for different types of neurodiverse people? For software engineers, we're all sorts of different types of diversity, and I guess different techniques might work better for different personality types or learning styles or thinking types.
Exactly. And even cultural backgrounds as well, right? So that's why you need to understand the people. If you have a diverse team, people you never worked with that come from different backgrounds, it's a learning opportunity for you as well. An example could be, space, right? Private space, when you're standing and talking with someone. Some cultures, they come very close when they're speaking to each other. While others, when you do that, you're violating the person's personal space, and the person will just avoid you down the hallway each time they see you. So, you need to be aware of those kind of things. Have I answered your question?
I think so, yeah. I'm just asking sort of the techniques that you've described.
Yes. Yeah.
Do they all apply to those different situations, or do you say do less of this or more of that? Or?
So that you would have to figure out, but when you're dealing with humans, generally, it cuts across, whether they're doing software development or in building, or even your family members. Yeah. But the technical aspect, works for software developers. And I believe any other thing that has any technical aspect. Yeah, your question, please.
It's a more hypothetical question.
Okay.
What's your take on leading multiple teams on multiple locations in the world? Because many techniques that you are describing, it has something to do with common sense, with human interactions on site, be there for them. And sometimes you get into a position where you have to lead teams which are, for example, in India, and then you have a European development team where you have to follow the sound support principle, and then you have multiple teams spread across the globe. What's your take on that, the technique that you described?
So it's related to some other question that was asked. So it's the same thing, though a lot of it. So nothing beats face-to-face. The bandwidth you get, nothing beats it. But the situation remains the same, whether the person is there physically or not. The only thing that changes is the medium through which you're communicating, right? But the emotions remain the same. The situations are the same. It's just how you deliver it that differs. And if you have multiple teams across multiple locations, then the time difference now comes in. Certain things work best when the situation is quite hot, right? And when there's no response and it takes a bit of time, it might get worse. So you might need to find a way around those kind of things. Yeah. Yeah.
I think most of us know that one person who is quite skilled in his field but just can't cooperate with anyone. What do you do with such person?
So personally, I won't need such person on my team because it's a toxic kind of behavior. Unless you have no option at all, right? Then you need to just find a way of working with that kind of person. But because it's a team, it means that we need to carry each other along. And if you're there to show that you're more important than others, then you're starting on it's a bad foot. So if you can politely ask the person to leave, that's good. Or if you can't do that, maybe you go and form a new team and call all the other people and not that person. But whatever you do, it will be good to explain to the person, that you don't like this kind of behavior. Not necessarily you, but it's not helping the team. I believe anyone that understands the situation would want to do well. We want to make the situation, better or stop if it's negative. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe different variant of that question.
Okay.
Assuming you have a developer or team lead, which is close-minded, like you give him idea that's work well, but still he always has something opposite that. So how to deal with that guy? Because it's not toxic, it's well formed in the team, but the problem is that if you propose something which can help in the performance of the system or something like that, he is always opposite. So it's like always bad. And that's something which breaks your feeling about your proposal and all this stuff. So do you have some idea how to deal with such, not maybe toxic, but a little?
Yes, so I think the key thing there is the opposite thing that the person does. Does it still help the team achieve their goals? Does it align with what the team wants to achieve? Probably your own proposal is really not the best way to go about it. And the person doesn't know how to let you know without just going to do the other way and then you just see it. So as a leader, you need to make room for such things. What you should be interested in is, does this thing that this person has done, does it help the team as a whole or not? If the person is taking 2 or 3 steps ahead, you can ask the person, okay, this is good. Yes, we're getting there. But can you at least maybe show 2 or 3 people how you achieve this so that they too can help you next time or something like that? So it's not that the person is doing something else, but it's whether it helps the team or not. As a leader, don't feel bad if someone says your idea sucks. It might actually not be the best way to go about it. So, there are 2 different things there. Yeah.
Okay, but in my case, that was the idea was already confirmed that it's working, but it was always bad. It's like someone you told that the idea is working, you show that it's working fine, but for that particular guy, it's always bad, or it's always opposite of that.
Okay.
Everyone
Okay.
sees that okay, but that person.
So in that kind of situation, what I feel is maybe that person wants to show that they can solve a problem or they can actually implement something that I too can do this. So maybe next time you look for something big that no one has touched, or you keep your own ideas first, even though you know it's going to work. Don't mention that, and then tell the person this is what we need to get done, and that might help, because the person wants to show I can do this. Yeah. Our time is up. We could still talk if you have more questions. Thank you so much for coming around. Yeah.